Could you briefly talk about TheFunded.com and how it can make a difference to female startups?
Sure. Well, TheFunded.com is the largest directory of information on funding sources in the world. The vast majority of the information is free, so you can see all the major funds, all the major angel groups, their preferences and things like that, all for free. If you want to see full telephone numbers and email addresses, you need to be a member, and you also need to be a member to see some of the reviews that CEOs post. Mm-hmm. But we basically don't care about gender or ethnicity at all.
I've noticed.
So yeah, we have probably a 10% female CEO membership in TheFunded. And the reality is that, again, it could be 50% or 75%. There's no bias at all.
And no limitation placed on it.
Yeah, no, and we don't gender or race doesn't factor into our admissions process to being a member of TheFunded. We only care that you're, in fact, a CEO or founder of technology or some sort of, when I say technology company, what I should really say is a company that has the potential to raise money from investors.
Okay.
So if it's a restaurant chain,
It's a bit outside.
it's not really appropriate for the funded community.
And I heard that you were kind enough to say at the TheFunded.com showcase that you're wanting to increase your female participation. I guess, is that on the site or as far as your incubators go?
No, so theoretically there should be a 50% female founder rate.
Yeah.
The reality is that right now, depending on who you ask, it's somewhere between 2 and 7%
Yeah.
of technology company CEOs
Yeah.
are female. And it might be a little bit higher, reaching towards 10% if you look at technology company founders,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times female founders will take a secondary position in the company management, allowing the male founder to be the face of the company for fundraising and other benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that really makes no sense. So from my perspective, there should be about half the population, depending on where in the world you are female, and about half of the CEOs of startup companies should be female. If in fact, we embody the things that we say as a culture, which is equal rights, etc.
Yes.
So now I think, with that said, the largest obstacle in my view
Yes.
towards greater female roles as startup founders and more likely startup CEOs is that the investment community definitely does not favor female founders and female CEOs. If you just look at the composition of investor groups, and they are well over 90% male.
Yes.
I can probably name on two hands the number of female partners at funds worldwide
Yes.
that have really taken a leadership role. In fact, I can probably name on two hands the number of female partners at funds worldwide that I know.
Yes.
And maybe there's a few more than that, and
Yes.
that's really not. So if the people who are funding are not 50-50, it's pretty clear that the people who are funded are also not going to be 50-50.
Exactly.
So with that said, we've taken some initiatives in another organization that I run called the Founder Institute, where while we have no selection bias there as well, we do try to market. First of all, we do a couple things. Number one, we try to have the institute itself be run by females half and half. So
Right.
we're at 30% of our chapters are run by females today. We'd obviously like to see that get to 50%. And obviously, if we ourselves can say, hey, we have 50% of our chapter management being run by females, we obviously want to see 50% of founders being female.
Brilliant.
Second, again, keeping in mind that we have absolutely no bias at all,
Yes.
we do some extra marketing to females that are interested in starting a company.
Yes.
So we have partnerships with Women 2.0 and other groups that focus on women, and we use those marketing partnerships to build the number of females that apply to the program, and then we put them through the exact same filtration process. Given some names, I don't even know gender half the time, so a lot of people have foreign names, and really I wouldn't know if they're male or female. So
I know that's the case with my name too. I often get emails from Mr. Theodore Pemo with my name turned around. So yeah.
So it has
Yeah.
nothing for us. Gender doesn't even factor into
That's
it at
so
all.
brilliant, and so great to hear about the initiatives.
Yeah, and we expect that. But there's some realities that are different. So we are graduating right now. We're enrolling about 25% female, in that 20 to 25% female, and we're graduating about 15% female. And the reason for the disparity
Yes.
is that I think our program is very hard. At least the Founder Institute program is very hard. It's very hard for males, it's very hard for females. It doesn't matter your race, gender, or other life circumstances. The program is hard.
So it really filters people out.
Right.
Yeah.
And we try to make it hard because it's designed to be a proxy for the real world.
Fantastic.
So, for example, right now we're in the holiday period, and we've asked people to not only work on their product through the holidays, but prepare a year-end board kit that they would normally have to do if they were running a startup. So we've added 100 hours worth of work through the Christmas and New Year's holiday 2-week period. And the reality is that if they were running a startup, they'd have to do that work anyway. So even though it's a training program, we're training them in a vocational way to be ready to run their startup.
Fantastic.
And for whatever reason, we find that the females drop out a little easier. And I've spoken with other women groups about why that is.
Okay.
And I think that they're not, so a lot of females have perceptions that differ from male perceptions on the world. And I think men expect things to be oftentimes hard, and sometimes women expect things not to be as hard.
Oh, interesting.
So, and I think women deal with things differently. So if you look at how the women who run chapters deal with founders in their program, it's actually different in many cases than the ways that men deal with the same thing. So I think there's going to be a balancing where some of the norms have to change in how startups are done to attract more females in. Because if we say, hey, we're just going to give you stuff that you need to do in a startup, regardless of gender, age, race,
Yes.
and we see more females drop out, well, clearly the way that startups are being built and run today do not appeal to females as much as they do to males.
Right.
So with that said, I think the way startups are built and managed will need to change to attract more females. So startups are very cutthroat, and maybe too cutthroat, I would argue. The workload is often excessive, and it's arguably too excessive. So I think if we can balance startup life a little bit more, that will also help attract females into the.
So changing the startup culture a little bit is what your intent
Yeah,
is.
it's pretty clear that modern day startup culture was built and developed by men.
Right.
So, because, and look what the net result is, that over 90-something% of the people who fund startup culture or who run startups are
Yes.
men.
Yes.
So, obviously if you want to get more females involved, it cannot continue to be a male run and operated
Right. And do you have any
framework.
ideas about how you could change that environment? Obviously, you've been having some wonderful thoughts about this, which is really great.
Well,
Do you have-
it's a chicken and egg situation, of course, because the startup world today is what it is. So it's got males that fund in the vast majority of the both angel and venture sources, and it's got males that are running the vast majority of companies by volume.
Right.
So, now you have a bunch of female movements, but what's happening there is it's almost creating a separate universe,
Yes.
right?
Which
Where-
is not so great.
Which is not so great, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Where you have female funded and female run, so it'll be like,
Yeah.
these are the female businesses and these are the male businesses.
Yes.
So, what do? Well, do you change the gender mix and then hope that changes the way that things operate?
Okay.
Or do you change the way things operate and hope that will change the gender mix? I don't think that you can just universally change the way that things operate.
Right.
Though maybe. You certainly could with certain types of regulations and things like that, but that's never a good way to change anything, regulating it. So I think the best solution is, even though it's a bit of a chicken and egg, would be to bring more successful females into the mix, even if it's not a very conducive environment for the way that they look at the world. And then their worldview will start to change how things are done. And arguably that's how corporate America changed, and that's how many other institutions that have been male dominated in the past changed.
Right. So using that female influence and power to affect the environment, the startup environment, is your idea is
Right, and
successful.
it's starting to happen slowly. There are fantastic females that have run as very successful companies
Yes.
like TechCrunch and etc. So for us, what we try to do is get a percentage of as high as 30% of every graduating class
Right.
containing female founders.
Mm-hmm.
Get as many as possible locations of the Founder Institute run by female facilitators, as we refer to them,
Right.
and try and get as many as possible female mentors in the program to help the combined, male and female students or founders
Yeah.
who are building companies through the initiative. With that said, I think we're achieving success. There's no question that we are today the largest female incubator in the world in
That's
terms
brilliant.
of number of female-led companies started, and in terms of the pace of companies that are started by female-led entrepreneurs.
That's brilliant. And you did mention earlier that there is some sort of bias or challenge as far as the funders go. Could you talk a little bit more about that, about how you've seen it or your experience?
It's bad. Many of the female founders that I know personally have been extremely discouraged.
Right.
I think they tend to, from what I don't know firsthand, right?
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes.
I'm not a female founder.
But you've had feedback from members.
Yes, I've had. I'm first of all, I am completely unbiased in every way.
Yes.
I'm, happily married with a beautiful young daughter, and so obviously I'd like to see startups have more females. It just, if for any reason, is a future career path for my young child. But so many of the female founders who I consider my friends have told stories that you would obviously guess. They oftentimes get meetings for the wrong reasons, potentially their looks or something of that nature.
Yes.
A lot of times they may even do an investment based on looks and things like that, which and then the second something goes wrong, they're eliminated very quickly. It's hard to when things go wrong, people are eliminated pretty quickly in the venture industry,
anyway.
no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that the shoe drops faster based on the experiences I've had with female
fascinating.
founders.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
So with those challenges that we are facing as women entrepreneurs with venture and angel funding, would you say that what are the opportunities, I guess, that we have at this point? I mean, it's just so great to hear your story about the Founder Institute and TheFunded.com. Obviously, I've been plugging away there too.
The reality is that there's, just because something's hard doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I mean, there's definitely a spectrum of, something's too hard, it becomes impossible, whereas something's hard enough, it makes you better for going through it. I think female entrepreneurs are definitely face an environment that is on the border of almost too hard, but hard enough that it makes you stronger. And if you think things, there are some advantages to being a female entrepreneur that haven't been discussed. So there are many disadvantages for sure, but there's some advantages. For the most part, the females that I've dealt with in startups have stronger innate management ability.
Okay.
They also have, female-specific networks that they can tap into, such as Girls in Tech or Adeo or many others that certainly don't exist for men. The females who are in funding positions obviously have some are good targets to talk to about funding opportunities. So there are definitely advantages to being a woman in technology, but I would say that it's quite hard. So definitely it's on that borderline of almost being too hard to being doable. And so hopefully if you make it through, you're going to be a better founder and CEO. I mean, there's no question about that. So while it's hard,
so I gather really what we'd be seeing as the pathfinders at the moment of those women that are breaking through are really the pathfinders for hopefully to make it easier for other women.
Yeah, but it will never be easy.
No.
I mean, it's incredibly hard for men. It's incredibly hard for anyone. So it's never going to be easy. And it's true that they're pathfinders, as you called them, and they may make it somewhat easier, but
breaking the ground.
It's not going to be that much easier.
No, and what you're saying is correct. For everyone, it's difficult. But as you said, there is that sort of extra challenge of being a woman. And obviously this year that conversation has really been a current conversation in the press and in all these different organisations and groups. So I think that obviously is also a sign that something's shifting in the culture.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you can, to some extent, I think talking about it's good, but you should just do something about it. Like, if a famous angel investor says there's not enough women in tech, well, You know, there's an easy way for you to fix that. Just
Yes.
start investing in women-led companies.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, and to some extent it comes from the top. So if you know, look at your own organization first. So as I said, you know, we have 30% of our facilitators are women.
Yes.
And I would like to see that be higher. So
Yes.
now I'm not going to bias anything, but
you're open to that experience.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, well, you're qualified and you're qualified, but since you're a woman, we're going to pick you over you.
I understand.
But you also, you know, you have to
Prove your
look
mettle.
holistically at what you have. So
Yes.
we're very fortunate that a lot
Yeah.
of great women have come
Yeah.
and said, we're going to lead chapters. And so if there's an inspired woman out there who wants to lead a chapter, come talk to me. We'd love to
Fantastic.
have you inch up the percentages to 50%.
Fantastic.